Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to read another story from Read to Me Grandma. And before that there are two small short stories which I'm going to read before the actual story. So this one is by Aesop, the Grasshopper and the Ants. One fine day in winter, some ants were busy drying their stores of corn, which had got rather damp during a long spell of rain. Presently up came a grasshopper and begged them to spare her a few grains. "For," she said, "I'm simply starving." The ants had stopped work for a moment, though this was against their principles. "May we ask," said they, "what you were doing with yourself all last summer? Why didn't you collect a store of food for the winter?" "The fact is," replied the grasshopper, "I was so busy singing that I hadn't the time." "If you spend the summer singing," replied the ants, "you can do better than spend the winter dancing." And they chuckled and went on with their work. So another short story is The Dog in the Manger. It's by Aesop again. A dog was laying in a manger on the hay, which had been put there for the cattle. And when they came and tried to eat, he growled and snapped at them and wouldn't let them get at the food. "What a selfish beast," said one of the cows to her companions. "He can eat himself, and yet he won't let those eat who can." Alright, guys, let's get back to the main story. It's about Cinderella this time. You must have heard about the story long ago, many times, by your grandma, by your parents, or by your aunt, and from the storybooks, of course. But this story is evergreen. It's always interesting to hear or read again and again. So let's go with the Cinderella story. We do not know what Cinderella was called when she was a little girl and her own mother was alive. It was after her mother was dead and she was a young woman. That was year of her first. It was then that she was called Cinderella. Her father had married again, and his new wife had two daughters, who were very unkind to this child. When she was not hard at work, the poor girl would sit alone in the chimney corner among the cinders, and that is how she got the name Cinderella. The stepsister made Cinderella work from morning until night, while they amused themselves. She carried the coal, and she washed the dishes, she scrubbed and she swept, and she dusted and she mended. She waited talk on her cross stepsisters. When night came, poor Cinderella went to a cold, lonely attic to sleep in a straw mattress. But her sister had a warm, comfortable bedroom. Now the king of the country in which they lived was going to give two balls, because his son, the prince, was coming of age. The stepsisters were invited, and they were so excited that they could talk of nothing but the balls from morning until night. Of course, Cinderella had no invitation, for she was never seen except at work or waiting on her stepsisters, and so she was often taken for their maid. When the night of the first ball came, Cinderella helped her sisters to put on the finery, and she fixed their hair, and she fastened their gloves. She would have liked to go too. What a joy, she thought, to wear pretty dress and drive in a carriage and see the inside of the palace and perhaps be spoken to by the prince. And as Cinderella thought of these things, tears ran down her cheeks. "What are you crying for?" asked the younger sister crossly. "Oh, it must be so wonderful to go to the ball," said Cinderella. "You go to the ball? Nobody would look at you," the elder sister answered. Then they drove off in their grand carriage, and poor Cinderella sat down among the cinders. She hid her face in her hands and cried as if her heart would break. "What is the matter, my dear?" asked a kind voice. Cinderella jumped up and quickly and made a curtsy to the little old lady who had spoken to her so gently. She explained that she was Cinderella's fairy godmother and, like all fairies, could appear or disappear at any moment. "Oh, godmother, I want—" But Cinderella could say no more. "You want to go to the ball?" said fairy godmother. "Very well, my dear, you shall go. Only do exactly as I tell you. First run and find me a big pumpkin. Cinderella bought a large pumpkin from the garden. The fairy godmother touched it with her wand, and it was at once changed into a gilded carriage. Now run and fetch me the mousetrap from the pantry. Cinderella bought the mousetrap. There were 6 mice in it. With one touch of the fairy wand, the door of the trap opened. Out ran the 6 mice, one after another, and one after another they were touched with the magic wand and changed into beautiful grey horses. Next, run and fetch me the rat trap. Cinderella bought the rat trap. There was a rat in it. Again, a touch of the fairy wand opened the door, and as the rat ran out, it was changed into a tall coachman in gay livery. One more errand, my dear, said the fairy godmother. Bring me the 2 lizards that are behind the cucumber frame. Cinderella brought the lizards. The fairy godmother again lifted her wand, and with a single touch the lizards were changed into 2 grand footmen. But after her grandmother had worked all these wonders, Cinderella still looked sad, and the fairy understood why. One more touch of my magic wand, she said, and in a moment Cinderella looked like a lovely princess. She wore the daintiest pink and white dress, red roses crowned her golden hair, and slippers of sparkling glass were on her little feet. Goodbye, my dear, said the fairy godmother. But remember this, you must leave the palace before the clock strikes 12, or the coach will become a pumpkin again. The horses, mice, the coach, a rat, the footman, lizards, and you yourself, the ragged girl you were. Then she kissed Cinderella and waved her wand as the carriage rolled off. Cinderella drove in the state to the ball, and the prince himself came to help her out of the carriage and led her to the ballroom. He thought he had never seen so beautiful a princess, and he and the wicked sisters and everyone was at the ball, wonder who this lovely young woman could be. The prince danced with her oftener than with anyone else. At 11:45, Cinderella remembered her godmother's warning and left the palace. Just as the clock struck 12, she reached home. The fairy awaited her. In a moment, she was changed into the rag girl and sat down in the chimney corner. When Cinderella's sister came home, they found her among the cinders, rubbing her eyes and pretending she had been asleep. She heard them talk of the beautiful princess and wonder who she was. The next night, the king gave the second ball, and Cinderella again helped her sister to get ready. Then again she sat down among the cinders. Soon her godmother appeared, and the fairy wand worked the same wonder as before. And Cinderella, looking even more beautiful than on the first night, rolled off in her gilded carriage. The prince danced with her the whole evening, and she was so happy that she did not notice how time was flying. Suddenly she glanced at the clock. 1 minute to 12. Without saying goodbye to the prince, Cinderella ran from palace as quickly as she could. But she had gone no farther than the hall door when the last stroke of 12 sounded. Immediately she was changed into a rag girl. Nothing was left of her grandeur except the glass slippers, and in a hurry Cinderella dropped one of them. She did not dare to turn to look for it, but ran on and on until she reached home. The prince did not know why the beautiful young woman had left him so suddenly. He ran after her, and although he did not find her, he found the little glass slipper she had dropped. He picked it up and put it in his pocket. The next day, a herald went through the city and cried out that the prince wanted to find the young woman who owned the glass slipper. Since he wanted to marry her, all the ladies who had been in the hall were asked to try on the slipper. Each lady tried to squeeze her foot into the dainty little glass slipper, but not one of them could. When the herald came to the home of the Cinderella's father, the cross sisters each had their turn, but they did not succeed to get the slipper on. Just as the herald was leaving, Cinderella came in, and with her mending. "Oh, let me try," she said. "You," said the elder sister. "You," said the younger. And they each pointed at her rag dress and laughed a loud, ugly laugh. But the herald said that Cinderella should try. The slipper fit her exactly. Then Cinderella drew the other glass slipper from her pocket. To her sisters, that seemed like magic. But they were to get a still greater surprise. The fairy godmother suddenly appeared. She touched Cinderella with her wand, and in a moment the rag girl was changed into a beautiful princess. And as the sister gazed in wonder, they saw that this beautiful princess was the same lovely young woman that everyone has admired at the ball. They then fell on their knees and begged Cinderella to forgive them. And she did, and she was kinder to them than they deserved. Then Cinderella said goodbye to them all and went with the herald to the palace. The prince met her, and then soon they were married and lived happily ever after. So this is the end of the story of Cinderella. So next time I'm going to read another story from the same book. It's gonna be the short story, the wind, the shadow, and the main story would be the snowdrop. Alright guys, wait for another story to come. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and push on the notification button. Alright, have a great day.